Hi, my name is Adrian Reed, and at the Business Analysis Conference Europe a few months ago, I was really moved by one of the keynotes, and I was really pleased to see Petra Velzeboer talk about mental health and how important it is. And Petra, I just reached out of the blue and you agreed to have a quick chat. So Petra, thanks very much for agreeing to do that.
Of course, I was so happy to hear your feedback and just to think, hey, if I can share my message with a wider group, why not?
Absolutely. And Petra, one of the things I really took, well, there were so many things I took from your presentation, but one thing was about how quite often we talk about mental health as if it's just about being unwell. But you introduced what I thought was a really powerful idea about actually it can be about being well or unwell. And there's a bit of a spectrum there. And you talked about how sometimes we ask people if they're okay, but it's like that's not a very meaningful question. You know, it's just kind of moving the conversation on. How do you think we can have better conversations about mental health to get into that sort of spectrum of mental health?
Lovely question. I mean, first of all, that spectrum helps us realize it's about all of us, right? So we all have mental health. So it doesn't have to be this taboo subject that like, oh, am I going to say the wrong thing? Because maybe, you know, they've got a diagnosis. It's actually, what are the environments that we need? How do we need to connect? What are the things in our control, right? And of course, some are not, but that can move us up and down this continuum. So you're right. We do this how are you ping pong, don't we? You know, how are you? I'm fine. How are you? I'm fine. And it's just like normalized. And then how's the weather? Maybe if you're in the UK. So, and this is like, we've connected, you know, let's make tea, right? And you think, you know, all these metaphors of like people trying to connect. But I think if you're getting the same answer, I think I said at the keynote, why not ask a different question? So in my team, we like to be quite creative in saying things like, hey, what's the biggest challenge you're facing at the moment? That's a really specific question that somebody goes, oh, let me think about that. This person's ready to listen, right? But also, I think I said at the keynote, when's the last time we asked somebody what's one thing that's going well in your life, right? To help us reposition the narrative about mental health and well-being as like, yeah, well, I went for a run today and it just really helped me focus, you know? So it's like, how can we normalize conversations through our day-to-day life about good mental health, being in the middle and survival, as many of us still are. And of course, then you've built trust so that when somebody is struggling, you're more likely to be able to talk about those things.
That's great. I love that. And it strikes me that cultivates such a caring environment where it's okay to talk about things, where it's okay to say, I'm not going to have my camera on today because I'm just not feeling okay. I'll be okay tomorrow, but I just need to not have it on today. I remember as you were speaking there, I was remembering a friend and colleague of mine, Tina Lovelock, talked about looking for digital distress signals. And she said, like, for example, if someone sends an email at like midnight and then they send another one at 5 a.m., why not just give them a call and say, I noticed you sent an email at midnight and 5 a.m. If you know, are you okay? Have you got too much work on? So maybe there's that kind of looking out for each other as well. Because I know you talked about burnout, and burnout's a very real thing, isn't it? Right? It's something to definitely watch out for.
Absolutely. I think it's taking responsibility collectively for our mental health. So whether that's in the workplace, but it could be your families, your friendship groups, right? Being able to notice, I love that those digital kind of distress signals, and you might be wrong. The thing that stops people from picking up the phone and just checking in is going, oh, they're going to think I'm just being stupid, right? Or like I'm overreacting. I don't want to embarrass them, right? But being able to just go, hey, maybe this is normal for you. Maybe you're totally fine. But I had this thought and I thought, why not check in, right? Now that person feels like, oh, you care and you're listening, right? Yeah. So I think there's different ways, right, that when we give out that kind of support, it comes back to us as well. And that's what we all need a little bit more of in this day and age.
Definitely. And I've been seeing online, I've been seeing another theme that I see a lot discussed is resilience. And I see some organizations sort of putting people through resilience training. And I always have in the back of my mind that there are, and I'm sure there are occupations where that's relevant, right? Where, you know, you're going to be literally in the line of fire and stuff. But is there an element of like, if you just tell your staff to be more resilient, is that a bit like papering over the cracks, do you think, in a way?
Well, it's patronizing is what it is. And I see it happen when there's like a massive restructure, you know, a business is being acquired, or there's lots of change that is out of the individual's control. And then they say, oh, people might, you know, all sorts of things, fill in the gaps, right? Petra, come in and do resilience training, or get your team in to do resilience training. And we always question that. We always question it. We go, what's the context? What's the outcome you're looking for? And actually, if we're going to do resilience training, the first thing we're going to do is name how that can make people feel, right? Resilience is, yes, you can learn the science of resilience, but I'm sure you've been through some stuff, Adrian, just like I have, right? And it's like resilience is built through those struggles over time, right? And the course can help you recognize when that's happening, but it can't necessarily just like, make you more resilient to deal with the change that is happening to you, right? People get disgruntled, resentful, and, it's not usually a great approach.
Yeah. Again, as you were talking there, I was thinking if it was an organizational restructure, one of the challenges is that the opportunity or threat that presents is going to be different for every single individual. Because, the person who's just got married and has a mortgage, it's going to mean something for them if if their job is on the line. The person who's approaching retirement and might get early redundancy, and that might be a good thing for them, So actually, it's a bit of a catch-all term for a really nuanced emotional response, isn't it?
And also, Adrian, if somebody is showing signs of struggle or distress, that person might have been the most resilient person in the room. But they went through childhood abuse. They went through a dramatic divorce, a bereavement, and it stacked and stacked and stacked, which you didn't see. Now they're crumbling, and we want to question their resilience.
Yeah.
Like, how dare you? You have no idea what they've been through. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because there's a whole journey to get there, and you're only looking at them from that point onwards and judge, or potentially they're being judged for this micro bit of a whole career and a whole lifetime. And that's really interesting. So Petra, if you were to summarize in like 20 or 30 seconds, a key thing that you'd hope someone would take away from your keynote, what would that thing be?
Two things. One is personal responsibility for our mental health, which can feel quite radical. But for my story, even though I had ample reason to be a victim, taking personal responsibility meant I now could decide what was going forward. And secondly, learn to think for yourself. Even in the well-being space, I think there's information overload, and we're going like, I need to do 82 things to look after myself. Do 1, do 3, you know what I mean? And make them right for you. So learn to think for yourself. Yeah,
I love that, thinking for yourself and taking that responsibility. So Petra, I really get the sense we could talk for hours about this, but and I'm sure people watching this will want to find out more about what you do. They'll want to find out how they can connect with you. How can people find out more about, the services you offer? How can they follow you and connect with you?
Sure. Thank you. Well, so my website is my name, petravelzeboer.com, but LinkedIn is the spot to find me because I put lots of content out there on workplaces, culture, that sort of thing. So just connect with me, DM me. I love conversations on there. It's me on there as well. So please connect.
Yeah, fantastic. And that's how we got connected. So it definitely works. So excellent, Petra. Well, thank you so much for talking today.
Thanks for having me.